Well, there is something to be said about focus. Like
Yes.
if you are trying to go after too many things, like it's like would you rather have the, you know, the glass, what's the kind of the image, right? The 10 glasses are like barely filled, or you have one glass that's totally filled.
Yes. And maybe it's because of my like entire life and upbringing is like I am the one glass guy. And that is it. Because if I try to split my attention, I've tried it once before. There's one startup idea that a buddy of mine had that I was like, I can get on board with this. So I kind of hopped in to do some of the design work for it, where another buddy did all the like coding and development as a piece of software in the sports industry. It never went, barely
Yeah.
even got off the ground. Um, and even during that time, like I'm a really good starter. I like starting things. Like I can get you moving so fast because there's something in this like the beginning phase that I can just be so narrowly focused and will not stop until the thing is done. But once I stop, trying to get that momentum back to any type of like maintainable velocity is next to impossible for me. And so like we got the whole thing built out, and then it was just like a QA thing. It's like, hey, we got to do these edits, we got to do these fixes, stuff like this. And I'm like, I don't want to do this. I didn't say it like that, but it always
Right.
fell to the bottom of my list. And so there's this aspect of creation that really, really excites me and gets me moving. And I don't know where the line is for me. I don't know where the momentum stops. And it blows my mind, going back to what I was just talking about, that I've done this insane same business my entire life. Basically the same end product and deliverable.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't gotten bored of it. I
Yeah.
haven't that obviously there's times where the velocity decreases and increases, don't get me wrong, but it always comes back.
Yeah.
And knowing my personality, it blows my mind that that's the case. And I'm thankful for it at the end of the day.
Do you think it's because a lot of your work is probably like project based? So it's not like you're doing the same rinse and repeat all over. It's like new client, new problem.
Yeah, I do think that is a large piece of it. And I also think that there's an aspect of the thing that we're creating for people is the new thing for them. So while people go and create their own products, right? Going back to the entrepreneurial story, you get that momentum, you get the velocity going, and I can't keep that going once it's kind of in a done state. The thing is, when we're working on these projects and building websites and things for clients, that is their new thing. That is their new toy. That is the thing that's going to give them, hopefully, the momentum or the push to do more marketing and to hopefully become more successful. And success can be defined in a million different ways. And a lot of times that unlock is for the marketing manager person that, just happened to be the person that knew enough about marketing things and they get to deal with the website on a day-to-day basis or a weekly basis.
Right.
And it's that unlock for them that takes them from hating a subset of their job to actually not minding it as much anymore. And so I think to kind of answer your core question is it's that continual process of bringing something new to the table for somebody else. So it's almost like I'm taking somebody else's idea and kind of bringing it to life. And it does have a very, not all of them have a very definitive starting and ending date, because sometimes we help longer term too. But there is that, once that creative process is done, I can then move on to the next creative process.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I've never wanted to like niche down. They say, people say, hey, niche down, find your industry, find your vertical, do whatever you want to do. Like, not do whatever you want to do, but find that narrow space.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand it. I've been in business for however long. I get why. But I've never been bold enough to pull the trigger on any of those things. And maybe that will be the detriment at some point in the future. Who knows? But that always new mentality of trying to solve different problems using a similar framework is just it's exciting. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess though niche down is, it's all relative to how you want to define it, right? Because I mean, one could argue you niche down because you use WordPress, right, as your main, CMS, right? So like you
Yeah.
can argue like you're doing web development, like you're not doing any development, like so we could make the argument that you're niching down a little bit, right? So it just depends on. Yes, I know. Again, the whole idea is like, yeah, keep going, keep going, keep going. It's like I get that, but to your point, maybe that's not as necessary.
And there's this interesting conundrum isn't the right word because it's not a bad thing, but there's this interesting thing about when you're talking with a lot of other people in the same realm as you. So like I like the context for that is I'm a very open book when it comes to what I do for a living, how we run our agency, the financials behind it, how we run operationally, et cetera, et cetera. I'm a give it away for free kind of guy and let's learn from each other type of person. So I get to, because of that openness and that transparency, I also get the luxury of being able to see how other agencies are running as well too. That's how I learned. I learn by seeing the cogs inside of other things twist and turn. Both the pro and the con of that well, the pro of that is I get to see a lot and learn a lot. Is the pro. It's a huge pro. The con of that, though, is you also get to see how people have had success. And if you're looking at other people's scorecards of how they have been successful, there is this draw of like, well, Bob is doing it this way. And Bob has seen some really exponential things happen, not purely from a financial perspective. Like, I'm not defining success purely financially, but like Bob has done these couple of things and has really narrowed into X. And success for him has looked like A, B, C, and D. And you look at that and you're like, I'm over here shooting shotguns while Bob is over here shooting sniper rifles. Yeah. And you start doing this comparison, not of necessarily the default founder comparison of like Bob's making $5 million a year and I'm only making $1 million a year. There's this disparate nature that's happening here. Not even just like as shallow as that, but you see how some of those workings, those inner workings are happening, and you're seeing how opportunity A led to opportunity B, which led to C, which led to D. And you're like, oh man, if I were to structure this over here differently and change these dials over here for myself to mimic more of what Bob did,
right,
I should be able to see the same type of success. And the thing is, what if I don't change these dials? What if I kind of keep them as they are? Am I going to stagnate? Because we all know stagnation eventually leads to decline. And so it's not the normal comparison of like purely financial. It's the longer term vision of how do you continue to grow at a decent pace, but also try to not copy and paste somebody else's thing that they have, because copy and paste won't work either.
Right. And we don't know all of the pieces to the puzzle of how they got there. You can't just plug and play. You're right. I mean, you can't just plug and play. That doesn't work. Do you find then, like, because I imagine, and I know we were talking about our mutual connection, Andy, before, but like folks like him that are kind of newer to the game, a year or two into their business, and you could take it from an agency owner or just in general, but like, do you find, did they get stuck a lot with that comparison? Like, oh, I got to do these 20 different things instead of going back to what we talked about before. Hey, just get the one thing, do the one thing in front of you.
So looking back on my experience and then comparing that, like if I go back and look at what I'm going to call the first like 4 or 5 years of Classic City being a thing, it's not really taking into account kind of the more freelance-esque day. If I were to boil a lot of that down, and especially in comparison to some of the folks that I mentor, the largest through line that I see is not an issue with quality of work. Typically, folks that are bold enough to go out especially in the web and marketing arenas, to do their own thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make an overly simplified statement. Probably their work product's okay. It's probably pretty decent. At least the folks that I've been mentoring, their work product is good. And the thing that I see missing from all of that is dedicated outreach efforts to go and meet new people. And the thing is, I don't really give a crap what niche you're in. I don't even care if you have a niche, says the guy that doesn't have really a niche. This thing that I see in the guardrails that I try to help put up is I don't know how we survived as a company for the first 5 to 10 years. I shouldn't say 5 to 10 years because 2016 was about 10 years ago from right now. But we'll call it for the first 5 years or so. Because we did not, everything that we've ever done has been referral based. It's all word of mouth. We have survived that way. And there were plenty of moments where it was purely survival. It was not thriving. And what I did not do, I shouldn't say we, what I did not do as the founder and chief relationship person was have really good flows and structures to making sure that I stayed in touch with the people that could possibly move the needle at some point. And in reality, when you are a solopreneur, especially in the web and marketing space, which is where I have most of my experience, and I'm going to overly generalize here for a moment, is if you're charging between $2,000 and $10,000 for a project and you're solo, let's just call it $100,000 being the minimum to survive, because you have other taxes and higher levels of tax you had to pay as self-employment and all that kind of fun stuff. Could you find one client a month to pay you between $2,000 and $10,000, give or take? If you're in the right rooms and just meeting people and saying, hey, this is what I do, chances are pretty high you probably could do that. And so the motions that I see happening most of the time is not getting out and building community, making new friends, and simply just saying, hey, my name's Bob. It's what I do. And as I tell them, as I say these things to them, I also go back and I'm actively looking at myself in a mirror. Quite literally, I am right now. I'm looking at a teleprompter currently. So I'm telling myself this is you say that you should be doing these things, and yet you still don't do them well yourself. And so there's this immediate mirroring moment of doesn't matter whether you've been doing it for 5 minutes, 5 years, or 50 years. Relationships matter at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, but as you just mentioned, not that you don't want to do it, but you're doing referral. You have a lot of referrals. You've built up a good, base over the years, and people talking. Those early folks that are 1 to 2 years in, as you mentioned, they got to get out there. No one who knows who the hell they are. And a lot of times, I mean, I'm assuming most of them skew younger, right? They're newer businesses, potentially.
100%.
The Andys of the world that are younger, it's sometimes they struggle with that. Now, I know he's been good with that. He's been really good with that. And to his credit, because I know a lot of folks in their 20s and what have you, very hard to get out there and actually have conversations with.
I didn't do that. Back when I was in my early 20s, graduating college and whatnot, I didn't. I stumbled into a handful of what ended up being very key friends with folks that were a part of much larger agencies. We're talking 15, 20 mil a year agencies that they didn't do the same stuff I did, but they maybe built software applications or something like that, or did only SEO. And they then realized, these account managers were oh, we have all these clients, but we don't know what to do with their WordPress stuff and things like that. And all of them, at least back at the beginning, were oh, we have Chris. Chris can just solve all those problems. Yeah. And so I ended up finding the right types of people to be in community with during those years, not really on purpose. I actually talked to a handful of them because they were recruiting companies. They did recruiting and consulting. And when they came up with jobs, I was I don't know if I want to do that, but I can do this. And that actually triggered their mind around some of their active stuff that they were doing. And I was able to come in underneath them. And there was very little intention around that, but it ended up laying out the foundation for kind of my whole mantra of working, which is, if you can, don't get a full-time job where your income can go from 100% to zero overnight. Try to piecemeal these like 5 to 15 hour a week jobs together so that if you lose one of them, you aren't just scraping the, you're fine. You go from 100% to 75, which that has worked out wonders for me over the years. And I know of a handful of other folks that can say something very similar too.
When you're working with those agency partners, we'll call it, is it like pure referral? They just say, Chris, here you go, and you're on your way. Do you have some like finder's fee? Like how do you structure those, or maybe how would you encourage people to structure them?
So I've seen them work in a couple of different ways. For me, we have very rarely paid out finder's fees or commission fees, and that's not out of selfish motivations. The reason we also, on the flip side, we also haven't received finder's fees and stuff like that as well too. So like it's a both and sort of scenario. Because what has worked well for us is most of the folks that we end up partnering with don't touch what we do at all. And so the thing is, they don't have processes and systems in place to manage a full website project from start to finish. So they would rather just be like, hey, you should go talk to Chris. Yeah. And so they just pass them over directly to us. And by us doing a good job, that speaks volumes for them and allows them to continue whatever it is that they're doing.
Okay.
That's typically what has worked for us in the over the course of time, in all honesty. Now, I know that that's not as enticing for like when you're building new relationships with folks, because some people, need that little extra. But yeah. I think we've paid out one finder's fee this year, and it was for a legitimately sizable project where the referral fee made a dent for that person. Yeah. And I was like, this makes sense to do. But collecting 10% on a $5,000 thing, $500 to an agency that's, pulling $5 million a year.
Yeah.
I
don't think people expect it either. It's not again, if someone brings it up, I guess you can work on that, but it's just something because I've been, I think about this from my end, but like, is that something to do? Or is it better just to have relationships where it's like, to your point, you don't do this. If this is going to serve your client, pass them along. I'll take care of them. You trust me, and vice versa. Right.
And I don't, this is not the 100% route that I go, because I do also know that there are good reasons to do finder's fees and commissions and things like that. But most agency to agency work, those agencies are not relying on referral fees to put food on the table for their employees. Now, there are some people who are just like super connector people, and those folks do rely on that because it's what they do for a living.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense. Similar to like hiring a salesperson. You pay like a base salary plus commission. It's a part of their living. It makes sense.
Right.
And so I typically try to get those conversations done ahead of time. Like when I'm meeting somebody new and there's a potential for that referral relationship to exist. Like we do some work for like branding agencies that don't touch websites. And obviously when you're done doing a new logo and a new aesthetic and new messaging, what's the next thing that gets touched?
Right.
The website.
Right.
So like there's very natural passovers in some of these areas. And so when that is blatantly obvious, I like to talk about it at the beginning, because it's really bad when you don't communicate your position. Right. And this goes across anything, whether it's referrals or otherwise. Right. If you're under the assumption that I don't want to pay referral fees because I'm a selfish butthead, that's actually not the reason why. It's because I feel like it's I want to pass things back and forth. Right. So at the end of the day, it's all going to be a wash. So just communicating that type of stuff up front sets the tone and doesn't allow for nearly as many assumptions to be made. Because when communication doesn't happen, that's when assumptions happen.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, I'm even thinking about, because the thing that comes up in my head, but it's come up with others' conversations on this is like, well, if I'm always giving them business and they're not giving me any, it's like, well, maybe that's not the best partner to have too. Like maybe you need to pick your partners better. I think that's a fair assessment.
And that also, there is also the other side to that coin as well too, is, and this is actually something I'm struggling to think through and figure out for myself, because we don't get a lot of natural lead-ins. Like, we don't get a lot of natural leads because a lot of our stuff comes from word of mouth. So it's like, hey, agency A is doing conversion rate optimization work or SEO work or PPC work, and they tell us, hey, one of our clients needs a website. Great, we'll do it. We're not getting this lead in cold. We can't be like, hey,
yeah,
we know this client's doing PPC. You should go work with this other guy over here. So we actually don't have the opportunity as much to pass things out. Now, when we do it willingly and all that jazz all the time. Especially like when we get website projects in that are way above our pay grade or well below our pay grade as well too. We dole those out like candy.
Yeah.
And so it's been this is an active thought. I don't have the answer right now of when you're in this position of being a highly referral oriented business, where a lot of agencies don't want to accept referral payments. How do you then provide value to a large network of agency owners and people that have very similar skill sets and services that they offer, to where you're not playing favorites, but you're also providing value in some way, shape, or form? And I haven't answered that question yet. I don't know. And that's what I'm trying to actually figure out now, is like, how do we build community and value amongst this group of people that have raised their hand and said, Classic City's cool, Chris is a really cool guy. How do we bring that together to where the value might be a little bit different than just passing referrals back and forth?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. You said you opened a big can of worms there, about, which is good. It's good for a podcast.
Hey,
but for about giving away business, that are lower or higher potentially. But I'm going to leave everyone at cliffhanger because we do have a rapid fire. We got to go to a rapid fire.
There we
So
go.
we're going to put a pin in that, and we're going to have as a jump off here in a few minutes. All right, you ready? Here we go.
Let's
Rapid
go.
fire.
I'm not terrified at all.
5 questions.
Getting loose here.
What's one risk you're glad you took?
So you're asking that question to probably one of the most business conservative human beings you have ever met, that barely knows the definition of risk, which is also another crazy reason I'm floored that I'm still in existence today. What else? I'm going to take a slightly different angle on that. It was a risk. Back in 2016, kind of the starting point of the business as a business, is we had some money in the bank, and it was basically just me and a handful of part-time folks, mostly contractors. And I realized in 2016, when you have a little bit of money in the bank and you're the one actively doing all of the execution work, the first thing you should do is hire 3 full-time employees in hope that you will just magically do more sales efforts. And if the sarcasm was lost on anybody, let me reiterate just how dripping with sarcasm that last statement was. And so the risk that I unintentionally took, because it felt like the smart move back then, I didn't know I was taking a risk, was hiring on all these people. I hired a person that was going to do both project management and sales, kind of combo person, a full-time dev, and a mostly full-time designer. And they all did good work. Like, the designer was good. The developer was fantastic. Got that guy right out of college, and man, I struck freaking gold with that dude. The downside, if any business owner is listening to this, can probably assume the downside, is that sales didn't just magically just pop out of thin air. Right. I just didn't do as much of the work, and over a 3-year period, we lost all of our money. And we had $2,000 in the bank account. $25,000 payroll about to go out, and I just had to I had to make a lot of phone calls that day to try to figure that out. And so even though that ended up being a highly negative experience and it wasn't an intentional risk that I took, hindsight's 2020, right? And so that risk taught me through that 3-year period and that very deep negative experience that I had of the value of having smarter people than you in your circles. It taught me the value of mentorship. It taught me the value of finding people that you could be open and honest with and tell the real story and go into the details and the weeds with them on a regular basis so that they can help put up the bumpers to the bowling alley effectively, so that you don't intentionally make these drastically terrible experiences, and folks that share their experiences with you so that you can then hear what those experiences are and morph the learnings from that and apply them, in the context of what you're actively going through.
Why did you, I don't want to make an assumption. I was asked, like, why did you hire 3 people at that time?
It felt like the right thing to do. It was actually one after the other. It wasn't all 3 at one time. And so I hired the first person, somebody that I knew very well, very familial, known her for 20 years at that point, and very extroverted to my very introverted. And I was like, you live in Atlanta. I live in the suburbs. I don't get into the city that often. I was like, you live in Atlanta. You could go out and do some like sales activities and go to networking events and all this jazz. And then just also make sure these projects run, and fully on board with that. And then that led to, oh, well, if we could solve some of those problems, then if I can get some development work off my plate, I could then go do some of that stuff with her. And we could then tag team that and then really put pour the gas on this thing. And so each of those decisions, one after the other, made more and more sense. And it didn't feel like we were losing a lot of money because that negative trickle was so slow. So it felt like really good ideas. And each of those decisions gave me back more and more time.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what to do. At the end of the day, looking back on it, I just didn't know what to do at that time.
You'd have been better off just doing it yourself, or maybe getting a couple freelancers, right?
I don't remember specifically how many hours each of these people worked every week, but I could have survived on probably an aggregate between those 3 roles of spending 30 to 40 hours a week of cash going out the door, rather than 40 times 3, which is 120 effectively. Yeah.
Well, lesson learned. Helps right. Other people going through that. That's why.
Right. Exactly.
That's why we talk about it. Yeah.
Bingo. Got to share the stories.
How do you silence your inner critic?
I am an external processor. Anybody hasn't figured that out about me. I either talk a lot or I don't talk at all. I have the middle ground for me is very rarely comes up. And so going back to a little bit about what I was talking about before, is mentors, is people that for me, I need to externally process a lot of this stuff. And so I go to my 3, 4, or 5 different people that I have in my life that all kind of hit me as a person from different angles. And I tell them the stories. I'm like, this is the thing that's happening. And because I've known most of them for a long time, they understand kind of the context of where a lot of these things come from. And because there's no emotions invested in their discussions with me, they're very easily able to say like, yep, that's stupid. That's cool. Here's kind of the aggregate of it all. Like, this sounds right. Like I spent recently, I spent a couple of hours talking to one of them about a problem. And he asked me a lot of really good questions and all that jazz. Mm-hmm. And he summed up the entire challenge in a single sentence. He's like, well, just sounds like you got to go do X. And I was like, well, when you put it like that,
so easy. Yeah.
You're not wrong. He's like, yeah, it's just, you're switching from A to B. Like, don't get me wrong, like that switch sucks, but at the end of the day, you're switching from A to B and you'll save money. I was like, son of a gun. That is how I silence it, is by talking to people and letting people share their experiences.
It is funny how we just overcomplicate it for ourselves, and we go through every 50 scenarios, and when you share it to someone else, it's the same thing we probably both do for other folks, right? Is you can
100%.
simplify it so much, but then when it's your own problem, it seems so like galactic, like it's everything.
And when you're, and on the flip side, like you're talking about when, you know, we do this for other people as well too, like somebody comes to you and is like, and you help them simplify their problems because you have the wisdom of years and years of experience. You also look back at that, the words that you're saying, and then you hold a mirror up to yourself and you're like, oh wait, I should do the same thing I just told this guy to do too.
Yeah.
And like it works in both directions. Which is why I'm a huge proponent. If you are at a place where you can be mentored, you should also be mentoring somebody else as well. And that extends past the business owner, founder circles. That goes across the board to pretty much anybody.
Yeah. That's a good point. All right. Let's get a random one here. Here we go. They're all random.
They're all random, right?
This is really good. This will be because this will kind of part of our conversation. What's the most valuable KPI you track and why?
Oh, shoot. That's so freaking specific. You're
you
also asking
can obviously
the guy...
pick whatever. Maybe it's a data point. Maybe it's something else, but.
So so I would say I'm really bad at tracking things. And first off, so what I'm going to answer this when I'm going to, in the context of when I am good at tracking, this is what helps me out the most. And that is tracking the number of people that are already in my circle, not new, that I have intentionally reached out to check in on every week. So this is not in reference to projects and like specific work or anything along those lines. It is, did I send you an email or just randomly pick up the phone and call you or text you and just say, hey, Brian, how you doing, man? And sometimes it's as simple as that. Because what I've realized is the folks that I can send a text message to that is literally just like, hey, man, how's your week going? And I know that I'll get like even that very basic question. I know that I will get some type of response that's not just like, good, and you? Those are the ones where you feel like you've kind of hit that like a deeper relationship level. Yeah. You don't have to feel like you have to craft it and personalize it and all that kind of fun stuff. Like I sent an email out this morning, actually, to somebody who I met this year, and I probably have had maybe 2 or 3 discussions with. Potential client, good guy. And I just sent him an email that said, hey, Bob, how are you doing? Love to know, like, what's something exciting that you're looking forward to by the end of the year? It's like, for me, I'm going to go up to New York City in a few weeks, going to go meet some new folks, and also just got back from the beach for a few days as well, too. It was awesome. Tell me what's happening with you in your world. Yeah. And he responded with like 5 or 6 sentences of stuff that he was doing. It wasn't anything web related at all. But I found the more that I do that, the more that success compounds. Not direct one-to-one. I can't say like, I sent this email, this new thing happened. Yeah. But when I'm going through those motions, good stuff happens.
When you actually care about people.
Yeah. Hey, shocker, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love Jesse Itzler has a really cool thing. I'm assuming he does it all the time, but he at least says he does, where it's like, I think it's 3. He tries to send 3 texts a day, text/messages a day. And if you do, even if you send 1 over the course of a year, that's 365. If you're doing 3, that's close to 1,000. I mean, that's a phenomenal opportunity to connect with, because most people aren't doing it, right? I mean, I find it, because I try to do that as well, is reach out to people, and most of them are almost shocked that you're reaching out, because I don't think people get messages like that. Obviously, they're close friends and stuff, maybe message, but just in general, people that you don't hear from a ton, I don't think that's happening.
I don't think so as well too. We had a client where actually the project did not go well. Like just like straight up, like it started off well and it just ended very poorly. And a large portion of that was communication. Hey, shocker, when communication's bad, other things go bad. And so I sent this guy an email. I was like, hey, let's chat about this. And so we chatted for about like an hour and a half and had a great conversation. And then a couple weeks later, one of my team members who he actually he thought was going to be a great boon to the project ended up being less than in these moments. And so I had that guy reach out to him as well too. I was like, I know there were some negative feelings here, but like reach out to him, say hello. They ended up having a 3-hour conversation and it went very well. Obviously it was 3 hours long. Like you wouldn't talk to somebody for 3 hours if it wasn't going well. And zooming forward, because it's been a few months, I read in one of his emails that he sent about like a project thing about like, hey, got some family stuff going on. I might be delayed by a week or two. I was like, got it. Sounds good. And so about a week later, I texted him. I was like, hey, I have no idea what's going on right now, but I hope that this weekend was at least relaxing for you. And he responded back with some actual details of what was happening and was extraordinarily thankful that the web guy saw in his email at a bottom line of like this little sidebar comment and then reached out via text a little while later. Yeah. And shockingly, the relationship is improving because we're communicating, we're talking, and we're sharing stories of just life. And don't get me wrong, you're not going to like connect deeply with every single person inside of your network. It's not humanly possible to maintain that. But when you tell stories and you can find that common ground somewhere, shoot, it's a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Number 4, who's someone you admire for their ability to take action?
So many people bouncing around in my head. And I know what you're about to say, which is, that's fine. That's the whole point. Pick one. It's good. Doesn't have to be the only one.
Correct. Yep.
I know, which is why the question is both hard and simple. I'm going to say David Feldman.
Okay.
Who he runs. David is a guy that runs a company called 3 Owl. Company very similar to my own, or historically has been similar to my own. They build dope websites and do a lot of stuff in the restaurant. They do a lot of techie stuff in the restaurant space and make restaurant technology a heck of a lot easier. I have known David since 2019-ish, and has been a long time mentor turned friend turned just fantastic human being. And that guy has gone through a lot of the same challenges that I have over the course of my career. And again, talking about mentorship and things like that, finding people that are multiple steps ahead of you, especially within a similar space, is probably one of the best things possible. In terms of just, especially as a business owner, never owning a business before in my life other than the one that I've been in, and also not being employed by a company like mine. I'm literally just flying by the seat of my pants. Like, I've never seen this in action. I've never also lived this. I'm living every day a brand new day. And so David has the ability, especially because he has gone through a lot of the exact same things that I have gone through, the ability to cut through the fluff of a lot of the challenges that I have, and is very easily able to say, this is the action that I took and this is what I did. And I'm able to see, because I've known him for so long now, that while we might not have known each other as well kind of in those beginning years, hearing kind of what he was going through during some of those times and being able to see, like, he made this decision to do this with his business on this day. Here's the context behind it, and this is how it's actually changed and shifted trajectories since then. Good gosh, man. Like, you can't ask for anything better than that, like, real lived experience of somebody who is a lot more decisive than you. Because for me, I'm a very indecisive person. I see both sides of the coin very equally. And it makes it hard for me to make a decision because I know the people pleaser in me is going to, when you make a decision, some people are not going to be happy with it.
Right. Yeah.
And so David's ability to do that and the receipts that he has from doing those things over the years is just phenomenal. That's painting an overly simplistic picture. But yeah, 10 out of 10. Yes.
That's awesome. Yeah. When you can have someone that helps you take, I mean, months maybe or years off of wasted effort for your business. I mean, that's massive. Absolutely massive.
I'm an external processor, and I do talk to a lot of people about a like the same problem that I'm going through.
Mm-hmm.
What I've realized is, and I've known this for years and years and years. I talked to David about it, and I'm like 80% of the way there at that point. Like, there's no, like, it does help me talk about it more with other people and gain other perspectives on the matter.
Right.
But I've realized, especially recently, it's like, well, that one conversation got me from like 0 to 80 like immediately. So you got to know those people in your life that can just be that.
Yeah, which is a good kind of double down for people on not to just do it by yourself. You got to get out there, and whether it's mentors, you have coaches, whatever it is, like get the hell out there and start utilizing them.
Yes. There's nothing else to add there other than just yes.
Yes. All right, last one here. How do you deal with sunk costs and know when to stop or quit? So you could take this on the big, now obviously we're talking about you being focused on your kind of business, but you could take it on a small thing. It could be with a client, could be anything.
I can take this in a couple different directions. Let me see which way I want to go with this. So I try, let's look at the customer perspective first. How familiar are you with the Savannah Bananas, Jesse Cole, the whole 9 yards over?
Barely, I mean, familiar, yeah.
Okay, so for folks that are unaware of the Bananas, they are in the process of making baseball fun. I do have a small caveat to that because I think baseball is fun by default, but the Bananas do it a lot better. And they're basically going out there on the field every day. And when they created Banana Ball, which is just baseball with extra fun rules attached to it, their whole mission and vision behind creating it was, how do we make the most fans first baseball experience possible? Every decision goes through the filter of, is this fans first? So while you can't copy and paste somebody's mission and put it as your own, I definitely don't want to accidentally do that. I know that building websites for people is an overly complicated task. There's a lot of different creative elements that go into it. There's design, there's development, there's content, there's general marketing. That's why websites are just an absolute mess, and why nobody likes to deal with them is because they're just complicated. You can't simplify the process into like 3 simple steps and we'll knock this out shortly for you. It's just a mess. So when dealing with expenses that go crazy and knowing when to stop, I try to view things as much in a fans first way as humanly possible. And I look at it with the knowledge that I don't care how buttoned up your contracts are, with how funky website processes are and how QA and creative work, it's hard to really nail that down in words, and such is life. And so I look at it and I look at the problem and the issue that's happening, or the these expenses that are piling up. And I look at the questions that are being asked. I'm like, how do we respond to this in a logical fans first way, in a way that we're leveling up somebody as much as possible? If what that request is feels like it does kind of fit into the essence of what we should be doing, my answer is going to be yes. And are there times where we do have to say no? 100%, absolutely. We cannot have a QA process go on for 3 months straight. This is not possible. And I try to back into that as best as I can by kind of starting things off at the very beginning of like, a website's not going to be perfect. It's impossible. There's way too many moving pieces. It's just not going to be perfect. So we're starting off with this as our foundation. Actually, and then so I was going to go from the other side of the company perspective as well. Can you remind me of what the specific question was? Because there was an angle I wanted to take. Do you have it
Yeah.
on you still?
Oh yeah, I have it right over here. How do you deal with sunk costs and know when to stop or quit?
So one of the, I'm actually going to hone in on a symptom of this is over the years, a lot of the core issue from a business, overarching business perspective has been the fact that our operational expenses increase very slowly but surely over time. Quick financial lesson is that in agency world, your cost of goods, if you're looking at a profit and loss statement, you have your revenue minus the cost that it takes you to actually put on the goods effectively, to do the services. And then you have your operational expenses, which are effectively your overhead. And in an agency, in terms of all the cash going out the door, 70% of that is your cost of goods, 30% of that is your operational expenses, because you're mostly dealing with people at the end of the day. What had happened with us is over a 2 to 3 year period, those percentages got flipped. And that's a little bit of an over exaggeration. But we slowly but surely tacked on a little bit more operational expense. Oh, this at $500 a month would be a little helpful for us. This at $1,000 a month would be helpful.
Right.
Or taking this person who's on salary and giving them time to work on the business and not in the business would be beneficial for the business long term. And how that compounded for us wasn't just this big old, like, we had like a 6-month period where we just added all of them. It was kind of like a death by 1,000 cuts, where over time, over the process of like 3 years, we've realized that we bloated this operational expense without even realizing what we were doing. And so knowing when to stop, what I've realized through that entire experience of that 3-year bloat period, if you will, is as an agency owner, it's easy to add on small expenses or give people a small amount of time in the effort to make the business run a little bit better.
Yeah.
And my challenge to people is, because of my experience, is stay as lean as humanly possible for as long as humanly possible. The likelihood of you needing full-time people to do X, Y, or Z, or spending multiple thousands of dollars a month to accomplish an overhead type of task, second guess it and triple guess it before you dive in. Because that is what led us to the place of not being sustainable long term. And none of these decisions were bad. Like, if you look at them all in silos, they were all incredibly smart decisions. But they were still decisions made upon a hope that other things would get better. And so operationally, we're fantastic. We have a greatly operationalized business. It's wonderful. Yeah. We just over-index there.
Yeah. Is that, so when agency owners, or I guess service businesses in general, right, when they're starting out, is the whole idea, so tell me if I'm wrong in this, so try not to bring on staff, like full-time staff. Just use contractors where you can, right? Minimize the software you need to purchase. Like, not that you have to bootstrap everything, but like if it's not essential, like no reason to waste money on it, right? What's the third on that? What am I missing? What's the other maybe bigger operating expense that I'm not thinking about?
So it's actually gonna be a little bit of a mix of two different things here. Making sure you fully understand your full financial picture. So I'm going to paint two different pictures here for Memo. So at the beginning, back in 2016, when I hired all these full-time employees, I did not have a clear picture of my finances. I did not see the very slow downward line that was happening at all. I just kind of did some mental math on like, hey, this is what's in the bank account. This is what's in accounts receivable. We're good. We're fine. Until it was too late. On the flip side of that, coming out of that, we over-indexed on that for a little while. We ended up paying somebody around, and he was a great person. I love him to death. I still work with him today, but we were paying him closer to like $5,000 a month to kind of be a fractional CFO. The thing is, if you're running a roughly $1 million a year business, the likelihood of you needing a $5,000 a month CFO, probably very small.
Yeah.
Now, what I will say is he put in a lot of really fantastic practices. It's not a decision that in hindsight, would I have made that exact decision back then, hindsight being 2020? No. Would I have made some decision around working with him, probably at a lesser fee? Probably so. And so he definitely did help. We had a lot of really good oversight into finances. We knew what our days to $0 looked like. We had a better idea of which clients were profitable and which ones were not, and which ones were trending good or trending poorly. We had fantastic insight into all of that. And so there's a middle ground here somewhere. And so that would kind of be the third leg, is understand your finances to a point to where you know what's working and what isn't, and that you have the right kind of flag points put up of like, hey, if we reach this, we will have to make some changes.
Yeah. Better off to have a longer runway, you're saying, and then make some of those timely decisions versus just, I'm going to hire 5 people today to get ahead of it when you don't even know where the business is going.
I am a huge proponent of not hiring on a hope. That's kind of like my go-to phrase is, we're not going to hire on a hope. Because a lot of our decisions have been made, I won't just say a lot of them, but there have been a number of decisions that have been made when we have hired on a hope, or we have transitioned people from billable to unbillable on a hope. And it lasted a lot longer than it probably should have. And again, I will also double back. Like, I'm not really sad about a lot of these decisions over the years. Like, I still think with the same knowledge set that I had back then, I still think I made the right decision at the right time. I just let them last way too long and didn't cut them off appropriately and shift gears. I didn't shift gears quick enough.
No. Going back to kind of before our rapid fire, because I wanted to make sure I got your thoughts on this, because we talked about niching down a little bit. We talked about, kind of finding your groove, if you will. How did you decide? Because you mentioned, hey, I'll give away clients maybe that are too small for us, some that are way above our pay grade. Like, how did you find? Well, what are your boundaries that you sort of work between? And the biggest thing, and this is where I want to get to, because I think it's helpful for a lot of folks, is how do you say no to those other opportunities when it's like, bird in hand, I could do that work. We could squeeze that in. Like, I'm kind of curious how you work through that.
So I'm really bad about this. I love helping out people. I like to say yes. And that is a core problem that I have. What I'll say is that I have realized that the two primary systems that we work in are WordPress and Shopify. Those are the two main ones. Anything outside of that is pretty much way out of our league. We do not touch it at all. So those are very easy barriers to put up. Yeah. In terms of like actually like a client walking in the door, I know that I am personally more willing to take on a smaller project that might be a little bit less than what we probably should do for the betterment of somebody. Like, if we're going to help somebody level up, that is exciting to me.
Yeah.
And so one of the little mini barriers that I put up for myself is, as we're kind of reorienting the business to be a lot more nimble, a little bit more collective of working with a handful of really smart people and putting them together as needed effectively. I really like and then with that being said, also of doing a lot more work with our agency partners, and to where we're kind of, the go-to web person for those folks, where I'm allowing myself to say yes to smaller opportunities is these agencies that we work with sometimes just need a quick helping hand with something. Mm-hmm. They're like, hey, we have this client, they're active, we don't really have a big project, but we're hitting these stumbling blocks here. Can you help out? The answer to that is yes. Because even if it's a few hours of work that's, barely worth invoicing for, if we can make these agency partners look really freaking good,
right,
we're going to win a lot of brownie points. And that also just like, I like helping people at the end of the day. And so when other stuff comes in, who are they going to think of? They're going to think of the people that help, get them out of a sticky situation.
Right.
So where I'm trying to lean more towards doing more nimble work and smaller work that might not be as profitable is kind of in this space of how can we help agencies look really good? And then when we do get cold leads that are coming in or something from inbound or outbound that we're doing, those minimums do move up a little bit because there's a large amount of setup time that goes through things. And so those are kind of the core barriers that we put up into place. But if there is an opportunity, and we've done this before, I have a couple of devs that do very odd programming languages or odd libraries of stuff. If it's through an agency that needs help, I will basically tell that agency partner, look, we don't do this really weird thing, but I do have a team member with availability that does actually do it. So almost kind of treating it like a staff augmentation sort of play. Where it's like, we'll give, you need 10 hours a week of this type of help for the next month or two. We'll dedicate that. You'll work directly with them. We're not going to go through project management, all this other kind of fun stuff. You'll just work directly with the expert and knock it out. And so we see that happen with our agency partners from time to time, not very often, but we'll dip our toe a little bit outside the boundaries when it's, again, something that helps our agency folks look really good.
How are you thinking, and if you want to take it from how you used to think about it, if it's different, but like from a pricing standpoint, are you purely project based? Do you have like some sort of, I know a lot of folks are trying to get into like this, month over month subscription type, even for service businesses. How do you think about that?
The way that so yes, we do have some subscriptions, some retainers that we have. And a lot of those end up being more development oriented because typically you don't need, most of these companies of these like small to medium sizes don't need help building pages. Like that's actually the whole point. You build a website with us, we give you the education on how to go through and build pages. And so if you're working with your VP of marketing or whatnot, you're not handcuffed at all. And so one of those go to market motions is we want to build you a website that you don't need us for. And the funny thing is when you lead with that, and then the website building process is actually halfway decent, unlike a lot of them, there's a desire to continue working together on stuff. And so going after retainers is not the number one thing. Yes, going after projects is the number one thing. We also have, a handful of retainers and subscriptions that we work with agencies. So like if agencies just need some help across the board, we'll just partner directly with them and be like, hey, you need 40 hours a month just to work on random client stuff? Great. And so we've done stuff like that in the past as well, too, which has worked out really well for everybody. To where we don't have to have project management and strategists involved and things like that. You just need an extra set of hands that you can send a Slack message to and be like, yeah, we can get to that tomorrow and be done. So lean more toward the projects, lean more toward the builds, and then we collect retainers when they come up. We just don't do the small little like, we'll charge you $250 a month for hosting and an hour of support that doesn't roll over. That just go get hosting and call us when you need us.
Did you struggle or do you still struggle with pricing? Like how much to charge?
I think one of the reasons for this is because of how long I've done it and how the majority of my career was very much in that freelancer plus mindset. Is I have always had an issue with undervaluing myself. Like we jumped from like 2008 to 2016, my hourly rate moved from 35 an hour to 50 an hour. Like that was the jump over that, what was that, 8 years or so? Yeah. And obviously like during those years, like I was in college and stuff like that. So like making $50 an hour as a college kid, like that's fantastic. So it was never a problem of like drastically undervaluing myself. But then we moved from 50 an hour to 115 an hour in the span of like 2 or 3 years. And that was like shell shocked to me. Like, how are these people going to pay 2.5 times the amount, basically? Mm-hmm. And people did. And so we're at this point to where we have a handful of clients that are really kind of fluctuating between that like 150 and 200 rate. Mm-hmm. there's the with the shift of the business model, and what I'm actually trying to think through is I don't necessarily want to go backwards unintentionally because it's easier to get smaller, right? Everybody, you grow, growing is stressful, and it's very easy to just kind of like, kind of go back into that fetal position effectively, if you will. But being more intentional about it and saying, okay, this is where we are at right now. How do we maintain that? Or maybe take one small step back in an effort to possibly get some more of this work that we have otherwise not been getting. Like if we're going to go the agency partnership route, if they're passing off clients directly to us to work with, that's fantastic. We can charge not whatever we want, but we have a lot more flexibility there. But if we're trying to help out agencies and kind of fit underneath them to help some of them and do some of the stuff that they don't want to do, we can't be at this mega rate. So how do we balance client work and then possibly some, agency work to help them out as well too? And I haven't figured out the answer to that yet, because I know my default is undercharge and over deliver. And so figuring out where that middle ground is going to be an interesting thing over the next 6 months or so, as I try to figure out, what can the market take effectively there.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier you're doing about $1 million a year in revenue.
Yeah, it's a little bit less. Last year was a little bit less than that, but yeah.
My questions is more around like doing enough, because there's always this idea of like, I got to scale, I got to do more, I got to get bigger, I got to. How often does that go through your head, or are you content? You're like, hey, no, we're running a good business. I'm doing the things with my family I want to do. Like, I'm kind of curious how you think through that.
Somebody that I had on my podcast a few months ago said this beautifully. I'm not going to steal his thunder. His name is David Newman. And he wrote in his journal at one point, because he was running a large agency as well. I forget how many total team members he had. I think he had like somewhere between 10 and 20. And he was at a conference, and he was writing in his journal. And in his journal, he wrote the phrase, "I think I have scaled myself into unhappiness." And that's not my phrase. I did not scale myself into unhappiness at all. But it definitely rang some bells in my head of how am I defining success for myself? And I know for a fact that success does not equal the revenue number at the top line. I don't give a crap whether it's 300,000, 500,000, 1.5 million, 5 million. Does not matter to me one iota. Let me actually back up one more step too. Because before we made some of this shift, I talked to one of my mentors. And I was like, I just don't know if I like, the size of the business and the scale and all this jazz and blah, blah, blah. This is a guy that's known me for a very long time. Known me personally as well too. And he was like, Chris, I don't think you got a problem with the size of the business. Like, you talked to me many times when your business was, past $1 million, and you were loving life. Like, I can remember conversations where you were like, this is the best. I don't think it's not the size that bothered you. It wasn't the payroll that really bothered you at the end of the day. It was how the trajectory was moving forward. Like, you were with the way that the business grew, it forced you to sit in a seat where you were trying to go sell CMOs, VPs of marketing, and things like that. And those circles, you don't live in those circles. You don't know, your network does not support right now these mega sized projects. And in order to be profitable with the setup that you have, those are the projects that you need to get. And because you never had a sales engine created, that model doesn't work.
Yeah. And
so he's like, you didn't dislike the size of your business. And so that was really eye-opening to me. And then kind of summarizing all of these with all this context now is, it doesn't matter to me what the top line revenue is. It matters to me more what the bottom line is, and if I have the freedom and the flexibility to do the things that I want to do. And that my team has the ability to do that as well too. And so we have ran a very thin margin business for the last 3 to 5 years. And I want to flip that around. And I don't know where the direction of that will go in terms of what the revenue acceleration will look like. I know that there will be some revenue deceleration, probably more than likely happening, and that's okay. But I want to take everything that I've learned over the last decade and start applying it very tangibly into the business. And that's kind of where the next step is I'm probably going to go into a season of a little bit more busyness than I have as a person over the next 8 months or so, with the knowledge that I'm now taking a decade of mentorship advice and able to really hardcore funnel it down into what is a very nimble way that I can build this business and structure it better to allow for flexibility. Because I have had pockets of this like ownership freedom that we all desire, right? It's like the freedom of being the owner and having everything handled. But it was a little bit of a facade because it wasn't really sustainable at that point. Right. So it's like, how do I get back to that, but it be sustainable?
Yeah, it's a good journey. It's going to be quite the journey. Well, and I think you realize too, like revenue is just a number, right? Because if as you mentioned, if you have thin margins, would you rather have 2 million in revenue with thin margins or 1 million with better, like double the margins or triple the margins, right? It doesn't, it's really the profit that's what matters at the end of the day, is the business making money,
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's you typically, when you're not making money, you're always making decisions in a very reactive mindset. And decisions made in a very reactive mindset are exhausting to make. When you can be proactive on things, those decisions, albeit they're still challenging, don't get me wrong, they're a lot more enjoyable to make because you can see the benefit of them fairly quickly. Whereas reactive ones, you're almost like hoping and praying that, this one lever that you push today will make a difference tomorrow. And that's just it's like driving on the Autobahn without brakes.
Yeah. So if someone can't, let's say you had a mentor call, you're mentoring someone else today and they're just about to start a business. They're excited and they say, Chris, what's my first step? What type of advice are you giving them? And maybe to give you, I'll give you a minute to think about it as I frame this. The kind of secondary thought is it the same advice across the board, or is it dependent on what type of business that you're starting?
So I'm going to speak from the experience that I have. So this is what I would tell almost anybody, because I believe that it rings true across a multitude of different industries. And this is something that one of my mentors taught me at the very, very beginning. Mm-hmm. So the guy that taught it to me, his name is Tim. And Tim knows me both professionally and personally very well. And one of the first like actual mentors that I had, and still is a mentor to this day. When he was going down an education route with me for a little while. And one of the first things that he taught me was all of your clients fit into one of 4 buckets. And it's in this exact order of importance: retained, reactivated, referral, and recruiting new. He runs a recruiting company, so of course finding a new client is going to be called recruiting. And so that order matters. If you don't have good ways to retain your customers, you will fail long term. If you don't have a way to stay in touch with your customers, this is obviously coming from a consulting perspective, so a little bit, there's different modes and methods for like B2C where you have thousands of customers buying your $20 product. Sure. But if you don't have ways to stay in touch with your customers and going and saying like, hey, how's the team doing? Like, we sold you this bill of goods with this type of service. How's my team doing? And zooming out with those customers and making sure that communication and quality of work and being on time to things are all those boxes are continually being checked. If you don't have a way to do that from the beginning, you're never going to catch the small problems when they're small, and therefore they will become bigger and bigger and bigger without you knowing.
Yeah.
And so starting from day one, build that retention engine, build that client feedback engine, and not just sending an NPS score email out, because that's not personal at all. Hey, rate us on a scale of 1 to 10. Actually talk and solve problems.
Yeah. And I don't think it has to be this like scheduled, hey, every 2 months or whatever, like we were talking about earlier. Just call them out of the blue. Hey, was thinking about y'all. How's it going? What's going on? Or hey, I saw this in your account. You got, like, maybe you're not working on it. Maybe someone else is. Like, anything you want to tell me? Like, it's so amazing how like just personal human touch goes such a long way in business.
I'll tell you a negative story because nobody talks about the negative stories. So at some point earlier this year, there was a 6-month period where I didn't do my like regular check-ins with clients. Like sometimes I do have them scheduled, like you mentioned, like every 2 months or so I have a recurring meeting invite out. Some of them I just have internal reminders where it's like, hey, email this person. But I don't know why to this day this did not happen. But there was a period where we closed a lot of project-based business in a very short time frame. And all of those accounts, I did not set up whether internal or external reminders to reach out to them because I was not the creative strategist on them. I sold them. That was it. That was the extent of my involvement. And I didn't check in on them. And I have no idea why. And so I reached out to one of them recently, actually, like this is like within the last like month, and was like, hey, Bob. Bob is my go-to name if you haven't figured that out yet. Hey, Bob, how's it going? We haven't chatted in a while. I know we just launched your project recently. Would love to just hear how things are. And one of the things that she told me, she was like, A, I loved your team. Person A and person B were fantastic. All of this stuff went well. We're very happy with the end product. It's all great. But she's like, this is the first I've heard from you in like 6 months. And I was like, I don't even know what Chris wants to talk about.
Yeah.
And I was like, stab me in the heart a little bit more and twist the knife. Like it's my fault. Like, don't get me wrong. But there were a couple of issues that came up during that project that we were able to resolve, and it was good. She wrote us a fantastic testimonial. Loved everything at the end of the day. But there were small problems that popped up during that 6-month time frame that if I was doing what I should have done as a business owner of a small business, we could have squashed those small problems so much faster.
Yeah.
And I don't have a deep relationship with this person now.
Yeah.
And that's just, we're not perfect at the end of the day. Like I get that. Like this isn't me like, boo-hooing all over myself. And I'm not trying to say like I'm a bad person at this, but nobody talks about the bad stuff. And so like at the end of the day, this stuff happens. And so we had a great conversation. She was very thankful, the whole 9 yards. It was a good conversation. It wasn't really even that negative. But I learned then, like, reminded of like, you have to have intentionality around it.
Yeah. Well, I do love, I think that's a good way to wrap our conversation. The kind of 4 R's here. Because if you retain, that like sets the tone for everything else. Like that's the testimonials, that's your references, that's potential referrals. Maybe they come back to new business in the future, right? And that's a lot of people forget about that from a sales standpoint is go call your past clients. Like they might have new projects or business. You got to keep in touch with people and keep that engine running.
And call the clients that you lost. One of the clients that we won this year, we lost the bid actually about 12 months ago from like today. And I waited 2 or 3 months afterwards and just sent an email and was like, hey, Bob, how's the new website design development going? And Bob was like, I'm so glad you messaged me. Let's chat tomorrow. And we won them back. Because we ended up being number 2 on their list. And they went with a bigger agency that had a bigger creds deck and a lot more other stuff. And they couldn't get past the design phase. Yeah. And we come in and we crushed their design within like 2 weeks. They spent 3 months on design and we knocked it all out in roughly 2 weeks.
Yeah. No, that's
amazing.
It's
dope.
Yeah. Well,
So
and it's, yeah, we can sit here for another hour and talk about that side of the house. Just like from a sales standpoint, like, yeah, that's where keeping detailed notes of why someone didn't go with you or why you didn't hear back. Like, it could easily be they didn't, like, I've had this so many times in my sales career, like people didn't make a decision. 6 months later, it's like, oh yeah, now we're ready. We had other priorities come up. You'd never know. Like, there's nothing, and really no harm's way of just asking, how's the project going? Checking in. It's amazing.
that same person that told me about like the 4 R's basically, because I was telling me like, hey, make sure you reach out, make sure you reach out. Even the ones you lose, reach out. I'm like, I don't want to be annoying. And one thing that he told me that was such a help for me is because I am a people pleaser. I've said this multiple times now. It's like, I don't want to be annoying. And he's like, Chris, on the continuum of kind and not annoying, whatever that word is, I don't even know what that word is, to arrogant, snobbery, tool baggedness of annoying, you're all the way over here on this side of being very nice and not wanting to bother people. Your version of annoying is only like 20%. You don't even cross the middle point threshold into like arrogance and bothersome because you're so far over here on this side.
Yeah.
It's not going to be possible for you to get over here. He's like, so just do it.
Yeah.
Like, and so that mental picture of that continuum helped me quite a lot to be like, I guess I'm not really annoying.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's nothing wrong with reaching out. You never know. It's a lot of it is a story we make up in our head.
yes,
yeah,
100%.
A little ridiculous and unnecessary. Chris, oh man, a lot of fun. If people listen this far, you could just shoot out your website. I'm assuming they've already looked you up. Website, LinkedIn, where are you on? I think you're spending the most time on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah, I spend most time on LinkedIn. My name is Chris LaFay, LAFAY. There aren't any other LaFays on LinkedIn. So if you type that in, you will find me. If you find somebody else, let me know because there's only 2 of us out there. It's me and my brother, and that's about it. And then classiccity.com for all the website stuff. Highly transparent homepage. You literally know everything you're going to be getting yourself into before you push any buttons. So
I like your homepage, by the way. It's really, yeah.
wonderful.
I like what I really like is the, because it's something how I thought about it, but I don't think I visually put it as well as like the right fit or not the right fit.
Well,
Like,
yeah, that one.
like
Yeah.
That's very that because it's like, okay, what bucket am I putting? I'm self-directing here. Yeah.
I'm working on a new version of this right now. That's a whole other diatribe that I'm not going to go down, but I'll send you the updated one and get your 2 cents on it because I'm angling a little bit differently and I'm curious what your thoughts are. So I'll send that over.
Man, I appreciate it. We'll take that offline, and I appreciate you, Chris. Thanks so much for coming on.
Likewise. Thanks for having me, man. A lot of fun.
Yeah.